the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of Stoned Appetit. With your host, as always, it's me, Kip, and quite literally from the Big Apple, we got New York City, Chris. How's it going, dude?
Live from 30 Rock, it's me. It's going well. You know, I'm a little bit broke, but you know, this is the big city. This is where dreams are made.
Yeah, cue up Jay-Z's Empire State of Mind. I'm sure you saw a homeless man masturbating on the sidewalk on your commute today. But we're going to talk all about why Chris is in New York, how long Chris is in New York for, and what he's been spending his money on. But before we do that, we need to make sure the company gets paid. And that's why I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Standing Akimbo. As we creep upon the 12 days of Christmas, I think that's what it is, you'll start seeing gifts abound. Well, we still have our giveaway going where we're going to give the gift of the medical dispensary card and a shopping spree to our friends at Standing Akimbo. It's Colorado's #1 medicinal dispensary located at 3801 Jason Street in Denver. They have the best prices on just about everything across the board. They have great selection of flower, like our friends over at Vera. They have Veritas. They've got Seed and Smith and Oleo cartridges. They've got dialed in 500s. They've got the incredible 1000s. They've got heavy hitter Rozzies. And then of course they have the concentrates. They've got our friends like Green Dot. They have Laser Cat. They have in-house batch, as well as, you know, some really cool other brands. I mean, it just goes on and on forever. So it's got something for everyone, and they've got the best deals in the city. So if you spent your load already shopping for the holidays and just need to get some weed to get you through them, well, if you can, get over to Standing Akimbo. They'll definitely save you a buck or two. And you can order online by going to standingakimbodenver.com and checking out the menu and see if the order online option is available on said day. Woo! Okay, Chris, let's party. Tell us, when did you go to New York? What day?
So I flew in Friday night.
Okay. Did you go straight to like a bar? I mean, it's a city that never sleeps. What were you doing up there? What are you doing up there?
It is true. Well, I got in Friday night. You know, I'm here partly on work. But the first half of the trip was with my sister, she's been a New Yorker for like 20 some years, but she will soon be headed back south. So wanted to kind of squeeze in a last little hoorah here in the city.
I love it. That's awesome.
As is customary, normally whenever I get in, she always has a pizza pie awaiting for me, a good New York, you know, traditional New York pizza pie. So that's what I did Friday night. Got in, pounded some beers, and ate like 4 or 5 slices of pizza.
I mean, that's not a bad way to start the weekend. And then, I mean, for those that have been following our social media, they may have seen, you know, flashes on the story page, but you've just been teeing off, not only doing touristy stuff, catching all the sites that Macaulay Culkin did, but you've been eating and drinking your way through the 5 boroughs in the process.
Oh yeah, it's been great. I mean, like Saturday, we kind of headed into the city just to go to like a holiday market and check it out. So we walked past Rockefeller Center to see the tree, which I gotta admit, the tree looks a little sus. Like it's you know, there's nothing to it, but it is pretty. But
wait, so are you siding on, you say that it's worth checking out? Like you're like, it's just a tree, but it's a cool tree?
Yeah, I mean, the way they have the lights and stuff on it, and like it's down there right in Rockefeller Center. So near Radio City Music Hall, all those like little sites you can kind of walk around. And for people who come to the city to visit, you know, you kind of want to knock those things off the list.
No, and I couldn't agree more. I've always wanted to do New York during the Christmas time with all the lights and everybody shopping because, growing up in fucking Mississippi, we watched it on Home Alone 2 and things like that. So you kind of want to get entrenched in it, wear the scarf and the puffy jacket and see all the people bustling around FAO Schwartz and whatnot. And you get to hear people like Dominic's fucking accent running around. How you doing? What are you doing? Get the fuck out of my way. Like, that
Oh
sounds
yeah.
awesome. So
Yeah.
I would say that would be one of the stops I would check out because I would do the Kevin McAllister route. Like, I want to see the biggest Christmas tree possible.
Yeah, it was cool. And like the holiday market in Bryant Park was pretty neat. It was just fucking wall to wall people there. But I mean, they had some cool shops, so we just kind of walked around there. But I mean, it's fucking cold up here. So I got to sport a nice jacket, feeling all fly in the city. But then we had to like make sure we hit our favorite spot. And it's one of the most favorite spots for people that live in the city. They'll travel out to Queens, and that's Cloudy's, the Greek restaurant. And it is fucking dynamite, dude. Like
I think that, you sent pictures and while it looks unsuspecting, you've tried to recreate it and it's always so damn delicious that I can only imagine the OG is fire as well.
oh my God. I mean, like, it's like some of the freshest seafood you get. And it's just like really easily done. Like the calamari, normally we go octopus, but this time we were like, let's try the grilled calamari. And it was by far some of the best, tastiest calamari I've ever had. Like the char on it was good. It was fucking exceptional. And those Greek livin potatoes, I mean, those are knockers every time.
And if y'all want to see pictures of Chris's journey, we dropped them with this post promoting the new episode. So you can see not only Chris checking out all the sites in Radio City and all the trees, but all the dank eats. And so you can get tips from him as well. And if you have any questions, he'll obviously answer all of those too.
Yeah. And then, the World Cup games were on. So people were hopping into bars just because, there's so much international stuff here that it's a vibe. So places were packed, bars were hopping, you could hear crowds fucking screaming.
You didn't go to SantaCon?
No, we saw that. Apparently that is like the bastard of New York. Like people want to put an end to that. Like my sister, when we got down Saturday, she's like, we started seeing people dressed up as Santas, and she was like, oh fuck, it's SantaCon this weekend. And apparently like they made it a rule to like no booze on the trains because like it's just a shit show, people getting drunk and throwing up on the subways. So we saw lines out bars with people dressed up as Santas, but we did not participate.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna say I'm surprised, but I am disappointed a little bit. I can't imagine you still got pissed drunk.
Oh my goodness, did we ever? Yesterday was supposed to be our big like city day. We had a Broadway show set up, and we ended up going to check out, which I highly recommend if you're visiting New York. They have a plethora of fucking fine cocktail bars, but the one we went to, Dante, has been around since like 1915. It's an institution, and apparently it's got the world's best Negronis. But we went in there and we were just gonna have a little drink before the Broadway show, keep it low key. And then we got an alert that the Broadway show was canceled. I'm assuming, somebody got COVID or something like that. So then we just segued that was like 2:00, and we had 5 hours to kill before our reservation. So we were like, I guess we'll have another drink and then figure out something else to do. So after Dante, we ended up swinging into Buvette, which is like this restaurant. They have a location in Paris. And let me tell you, Kip, we had escargot and we thought about you. We ate them for you, and they were absolutely divine. Like garlicky, buttery, just so good. You would have been impressed.
I love a good snail, I love a good pate, and I love a good caviar, all of which are great accompanied by fried chicken.
Yeah, it was so good. We polished off a bottle of wine there, ate some snails. And then we had
So
a few
good.
more. We had a few more hours to kill, so we hopped into this wine bar down the street, had some more beverages, and then we made our way to the restaurant, like our big night out restaurant, and we went to this place called Frenchette. And I think like back in the day, it won, like in 2019, it won best restaurant in New York City, and it was dynamite. Like we had oysters, we had these razor clams that were fucking super tasty.
I love how you use descriptors like super and tasty. I feel like that paints a gorgeous picture. So if anyone has to wonder, like, oh man, Chris is eating like Michelin star dinners, I wonder what it comes in as. It comes in as super tasty, everybody.
Super tasty. But it was funny though.
He knows his way around a menu. He just has the verbiage of a 7-year-old.
When we ordered the oysters, it was funny because all of a sudden there was these like sausages on top of the oyster tray, and me and Martha looked at each other like, what the fuck are these sausages doing on this thing? But they were fucking, again, super tasty. But then I'm not gonna lie, man, the duck I had, apparently they dry aged these duck breasts, and it came out, it was just a basic duck with frites. And the French fries, they had the sauce. I don't know what it was. It was like an aioli, but it was just so much more than that. And we could have dipped we could have ordered another thing of fries and just continued to dip them in that sauce. We probably looked like just delinquents in there, just like dousing these fries in this fucking dip. It was so goddamn good. And we went adventurous. We tried an orange wine.
Yeah, how was it? I love it.
Oh, dude, my sister was blown away. She had never had an orange wine, and like the Somm was really cool. He came over to our table. He was like, "You two look like adventurous people." And I'm assuming he could tell that we were slightly inebriated. And he's like,
And
"Are
by
y'all
slightly, you mean drunk? Because you sent selfies with your sister from the train, and I was like, oh man, they are fucked up. Y'all were like real hammed up. So there's no way y'all are making like public appearances and fooling anybody.
We actually kept it together. It was after dinner where it really hit us."
That last cocktail always does.
Yeah. But the sommelier was great. He was like, if you guys are willing to let me lead y'all in a direction, I was like, dude, lead us wherever you want to take us. And yeah, it was so much fun, like obviously we were punching above our weight class in terms of what we were spending financially. But I was like, look, we got all this leftover money from fucking the Broadway show that got canceled. Let's spend it all.
I mean, yeah, you can't take it with you. And like you mentioned, it's kind of like Martha's last run, with you up there. So you got to make it count. And I feel like experiences are always worthwhile. So it's better than if you had come home and bought yourself a PlayStation or a new, pocket pussy.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So yeah, it was great. And then, obviously polished it off this morning with a nice New York City bagel, which, I mean, I love the bagel shops in Denver and stuff, but it's not the same.
I don't think anybody would tell you that it does, that they compare in any stretch of the imagination. But I'm glad you're eating well. What the fuck are you doing up there now? Like, are you polishing off dinosaur bones in New York City? Are you robbing the place like Thomas Crown?
Yeah, I'm gonna go in there. Hopefully it's like a night at the museum and all these things come to life. No, we're gonna go check out the American Museum of Natural History tomorrow to learn some things about how they work and kind of bring some of those ideas back to the museum in Denver and try to implement some of those.
Well, it seems like they have a very strong museum culture up there. So you're probably learning from the best. So take good notes.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And tonight we're doing a team dinner at kind of like an old like Italian family style place called Carmine's out there near Broadway. So that'll be fun. And then tomorrow night we're, as long as our Broadway show doesn't get canceled, we're doing like a team outing to a Broadway show.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, Chris, it sounds like you've got a great little week ahead of you. Next week is our Christmas special where we'll recap the holiday newsletter that went out with some of our favorite purchases and products, as well as we have a kick-ass episode guest joining us. We have Dr. Donald Currie from Dimensions Algonquin. So we're going to be talking psychedelics and cannabis assisted psychotherapy after this. So we're going to dive into the weeds, Chris, but I appreciate you taking the time to check in with us during your busy work week.
Yeah. You know, how are things going in Denver? Is it brutally cold there? Or I heard we were getting some storms.
It's coming in today for those that are listening. It's Monday. I've been playing the family game, which is not a bad thing. We've had a good time. We've gotten to eat and go around. We did the Chris Kindle Fair, which is down in Civic Center Park. It has a nice mix of food and stalls, which is kind of appetizing for everybody. There's 3 or 4 alcohol stops as well. We were there kind of in a peak hour, Sunday afternoon. It was fucking packed. So like the line to get a cocktail or a drink was a little long. So if you wanted to plan accordingly, you could just get your own, like buy a hot coffee or cocoa or whatever, and just bring a couple nips of whiskey or something of that, you know, whatever you want, rum chata, Kahlua. If you wanted to elevate the experience, but I personally would recommend bringing your vape pen or some of those dialed in edibles from Standing Akimbo. And then you can sit there and eat fucking 60 pierogies while you Christmas shop for knickknacks.
Were there some cool little holiday market like
There's
stalls?
There's the things that like, it's not necessarily last minute ideas, but it's just the smaller, it's like, you're not going to buy a table or something, or if you needed a new rug, it's not somewhere you go buy those kinds of gifts or a chimenea. But if you wanted to buy someone a candle or one of those little Russian stacking dolls or woodwork or something in that kind of realm, they have a lot of that.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so it's fun stuff, and it's great people watching and walking around. It's free to get in. And then the food is pretty solid down there. So we've been doing family style stuff. We're going to go out to eat this evening and have some fun as well. But no, you haven't missed too much. The weather's coming in this week, and the mountains continue to get dusted and stumped on. So that's great news.
Yeah, how was real quick, how was the yacht club? I heard they have a new venue?
It's a fucking vibe over there. So they just celebrated their 1-year birthday. I took my parents over there, which was probably a funny idea, but it was a vibe, and my parents like hot dogs. So I was like, let's go get a hot dog from the Kings. And so we went over there, and it was popping. They had 3 nights of Vinyl Ranch. I don't know if it's a brand new menu, but they had some menu items that were added on there, whether it be for the birthday celebration or the collab with the Vinyl Ranch crew from Texas, or if they're permanent, they very well may be. But no matter what, it's banger fucking food, and they're good people. So we had a big time there as well. And I finished White Lotus last night. That's another thing I forgot to mention. So for those that are we'll talk about that next week. Well, no spoilers for anybody that's listening now. We'll talk about it next week. That gives you a full week to watch the finale of White Lotus, and then we'll discuss who died. Was it just? Who do you wish died? And all the other things. So we got a doozy for the end of the season, Chris.
Yeah, where are y'all going to dine this evening?
Tavernetta. It's an Italian restaurant downtown.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. I think you used to work there. I'm going to judge them based off of if they polish their glass as well as you do.
Yeah, I'm sure it's super tasty.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. I love Italian food, and they do some of the best in the city. So let's have a fucking day.
Nice.
All right. Well, Chris, get back to work. You know, that city, you'll probably spend more money. You're going to have to make a lot more. So get back to work.
That's very true. That's very true. But yeah, in the meantime, keep Denver safe for me, and I shall return.
Hell yeah. Well, y'all stay tuned. We have a great guest joining us on the back end of this episode, and that interview is presented by Connect for Health Colorado. Don't forget, it's open enrollment season now until January 15th. Chris, have a great day. We'll talk soon, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, y'all. I told y'all we have a kick-ass episode for y'all this week. We have a great guest with us today. Someone, as y'all know, who's going to be much smarter than us. Chris is still partying up at NYC, so I have the honors of hanging out with Donald, don't screw this up, Currie, the clinical director of Dimensions Algonquin Highlands locations, correct?
That's correct.
And he is a licensed clinical
I'm a registered psychotherapist.
psychotherapist, registered. Sorry. My apologies. I knew I was going to get to the end. I was like trying to run it back. But Donald, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, thanks so much for taking this time to meet with me.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever heard the podcast before, but we always like to start our introductions off a little bit different than the average bear. For those that are in person, we always ask them, are you a transplant or a native to Colorado? But seeing as we're doing this via Zoom, tell us a little bit about where you're calling in from, tell us and where you're from in general.
So I am a transplant where I am now in Algonquin Highlands. I'm originally from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada, which is about 8 hours north of Toronto. I moved to Toronto when I was 18, lived there for 25 years. Then during COVID, I actually lived in Mexico. And now I am in Algonquin Highlands, which is approximately 2.5 hours north of Toronto. So it is beautiful up here and very cold right now.
So I Googled obviously where exactly I was looking at where you are, and you're not far from the Hamilton Tiger Cats as a CFL football gambler myself. But being 8 hours north of Toronto growing up, that's like bone chilling cold.
It was really cold. We had a period where it was minus 50 degrees for 60 days in a row in my teenage years. It was so cold. You go outside and if you got out of the shower, your hair would freeze right away. So it's not.
I can see. I mean, I think that answers the question of, did you find the COVID reprieve in Mexico? Where did you end up calling home for a little while?
I was in Cabo San Lucas, which is just north of Cabo. And I was there for 6 months. Originally, Dimensions was going to be located in Mexico, in Cabo.
Oh, okay.
And when COVID happened, we redirected the project to Algonquin Highlands. And with all of the regulations that are changing so rapidly, it now makes sense. And this is the perfect location.
Well, that's almost a perfect segue. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, how it is you found, or what Dimensions is, and how you found that this was the perfect, opportunity and home for you?
Yeah, so I was introduced to Andrew Galloway and Christopher Dawson, our CEO and Chief Operating Officer, in 2019. And Chris had actually gone to a conference in South America in 2016 on psychedelic medicines. And Chris and Andrew were they were co-founders of Edgewood Network, which was one of the largest addiction treatment facilities in Canada. And plant medicine really fascinated both of them and its potential to help people heal. I got involved with them. I was introduced to them in 2019 because I have a longstanding knowledge of psychedelics. I've been exploring them personally for 20 years. And I'm also trained in psychedelic assisted therapy and cannabis assisted therapy. So they were introduced to me, and we started discussions and started the process of really building Dimensions over the course of 2019 till 2022. And we opened our doors in July of 2022, this year.
Okay. And I want to talk more about that. But before I do, I would be remiss, and I wouldn't be good at our podcasting if I didn't ask, how were you introduced into mushrooms? Because it sounds like you said 20 years ago, which my rough estimates means it was that big city livin that corrupted this young, country boy.
Well, I was, so when I was going through my process of becoming a psychotherapist, psychedelics kept coming up. Right?
Oh, really? So it wasn't like black market eating mushrooms with some buddies?
No.
Just kidding.
Yeah, for me, what it was more this process of exploring. I would read books about psychotherapy, and there would be this talk of all the research that was done back in the 1960s and 70s, right? Before it was shut down, and the war on drugs had a huge part in that. And so I started researching these psychedelic medicines and learning about ayahuasca and psilocybin and 5-MeO DMT. And I was going through my own journey of therapy, because as psychotherapists, we have to do our own work. So I was, doing hundreds of hours of psychotherapy on myself. And it was great. My life,
I know.
my life transformed. But it was like, there's still layers that I felt that I couldn't get to in therapy. And so I started traveling and going to South America and engaging with different traditional medicine practices in South America. So working with facilitators of psilocybin and facilitators of ayahuasca, and the healing that I experienced, it really helped me to process traumas that were stored so deep in my nervous system. It would have taken me 20 years to get there in traditional therapy. And then after I would have those experiences, I would come back to Canada and do integration with my psychotherapist that I was seeing at the time. So I really felt like it helped me to expedite my healing process. But then I really got passionate about, okay, is this something that is going to become legalized and regulated in North America? And very slowly that it is becoming a reality. As we're seeing now, there's a lot of decriminalization of psilocybin that's happening in certain provinces in the States. In Canada, we now have the Special Access Program, which allows people with treatment-resistant anxiety, depression, and PTSD to have access to these medicines. And there's training programs for therapists that are available now, teaching them how to facilitate psychedelic-assisted therapy with their clients.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And you are right. You were wondering, it wasn't will it happen? It's kind of, or if it would happen, it'd be will it would happen. And so Colorado, and one reason I was very intrigued to speak with you today is because you obviously know the clinical aspects of it, but you also work in the industry with it. We've started to see that things like ketamine clinics have started to come about in the States, and Colorado recently legalized psilocybin therapy and different aspects of it. But, there are some concerns with these legalizations, because as we start to see the pitfalls of the cannabis industry, at least stateside, and I've seen it, it's somewhat affected up there in Canada, is that, if we have certain people playing in this game, it may end up sinking the overall ethos or the plan of which it was legalized for. Does that make sense? Like are we worried about that aspect of, by legalizing it in this capacity and doing things like that it opens the door to making it like a big pharma takeover, rather than folks like y'all who have kind of spearheaded it through the traditional methods?
Well, there's sort of two different paths. In Canada, what's happened is there's the plant extracts, right? So there's a standardization that is happening with plant extracts. So there's plant extracts of psilocybin, ayahuasca, and San Pedro, which is a mescaline, that are being worked on. And then there's also the synthesized molecules. And I know with regulation in Canada, what they're looking for is sort of a standardization of these medicines. Because if someone is getting psilocybin, for example, right, and it's the whole biomass, it's not standardized, and people could be getting different doses.
Yeah, that's correct. That makes sense.
So with what's happening in Canada, eventually people will be able to either work with a standardized plant extract or a synthesized molecule.
I mean, that makes sense, because you really can't have somebody's like, if 0.5 over here milligram, or 5 milligrams psilocybin, whatever it may be, the small doses, they can't be varying based off of who technically grew those or who was selling them based off the brands. So it kind of just makes you wonder, like, will it be the same big players, or how will it be? Will it be a monopoly, or will we have like mom and pop operations like the cannabis. And so seeing that as y'all are kind of on the forefront or a little bit ahead of us, I always want to know what's around that curve and expectations I should have for at least Colorado.
Yeah, and in Canada right now, the discussion is more around making these medicines accessible for people with treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, or PTSD. At this point in time, it doesn't appear that it's going to be legalized where you can go into a store and get it in the same way that you would be able to get cannabis. It would be in a clinical or medical setting where someone would have access to these plant medicines.
Well, that leads me kind of to my next question, a little bit more about dimensions. You mentioned that y'all you debated throwing one down in Mexico, and I can see why. I just got back from Mexico City, had a big time. I'm sure our listeners are sick of hearing me say that. But y'all have multiple locations across, or y'all opened up and look, I don't want to butcher the word, but in Canada. Is that something like you can see on the Dimensions website, retreats and things of that nature? Can someone sign up to do it like you hear of the ayahuasca that, the Aaron Rodgers and the Chelsea Handlers have made social media prominent? Are you able to kind of experience that if you want to kind of, maybe open up those doors through therapy, or do you have to be a patient of some sort? How does that work?
Yeah, so if someone is interested right now in Canada, we are working with cannabis. So we're doing cannabis ceremonies and intentional cannabis ceremonies and cannabis-assisted psychotherapy. As cannabis is legal in Canada and easily accessible, that's the medicine that we're working with right now. Eventually down the road, as psilocybin and other medicines legalize, we will be able to offer those medicines as well. If someone's interested in signing up for one of our retreats, they would put through an application. First, they would start with an inquiry on our website and do an application for the retreat, where then they're taken through our onboarding process, where they would receive assessments, psychological assessments, to see their current, if there's currently any mental health indications that they're working with. They have PTSD, anxiety, or depression. And then they would be able to be put into the correct program. They would also, once we get into psilocybin, they would be working with a medical doctor who would be able to make sure that there's no contraindications for them taking part in our program. And then they would receive that approval from the doctor that it would be okay to go ahead.
So then y'all would actually still would y'all act on, not necessarily as a pharmacy, or would they it'd be like a PRN, bring your medicine that you've been prescribed for your PTSD, anxiety, depression of that nature, and then we'll go through the phases of the psychotherapy? Or is it more of like the couples retreat where it's like, come to us, it's like a safer space, we have the controlled metered dosages, and we understand because of your medical records where we can proceed? I'm just curious because I'm fascinated, because I think we're coming to this stage in the months ahead.
So right now in Canada, the actual medicine would need to be delivered by a physician, right? So when it gets to that point, it will still be delivered by a physician, right? And
so it's not BYOB.
That's right. Yeah. Right now it's BYOC. Right now it's bring your own cannabis, right? So we give people a list of different cannabis that they would procure and that they would bring with them. But with psilocybin and with other psychedelic medicines, it will be slightly different.
A little bit different. So what do you think about those aspects? Can I see that y'all mix more traditional, Western versus a little bit more of the ancient philosophies of using the earth, and the Eastern world's, proactive approaches? How do you combat those, especially as we see the war on, cannabis being the alternative to an opioid and things of that nature? How do y'all manage to juggle that without pissing off the hippies?
Yeah, so I think if we look back at cannabis, its original use was as an entheogen, or as a psychedelic. There's evidence that it's been used for thousands of years by cultures all across the world as a means of connecting with something greater than ourselves, right? people use it recreationally as well. And that's okay too, right? Really what we're trying to get into is intentional use of cannabis, right? It's okay to use it intentionally, recreationally, right? It helps people with creativity. It's a wonderful medicine that helps people to manage symptoms as well, right? There's a lot of different mental health symptoms and physical health symptoms that cannabis can help people manage, right? The intentional use of cannabis for us is helping people to use it in a ceremonial context, coupled with psychotherapy, to help them resolve root causes of symptoms. So, for example, we've been working with individuals with PTSD, and in a ceremony, we have the opportunity to reprocess trauma that gets stored within the nervous system. Cannabis gives greater access to the nervous system where trauma is stored. And in a ceremony, we can help people to reprocess that trauma that gets stored in the body. When that trauma is reprocessed, people experience a resolution in symptoms. We've worked with people who are smoking cannabis on a daily basis as a means of managing their symptoms of PTSD. And after going through our program, they're reporting that they vastly reduced their use of cannabis afterwards. So it's been very interesting to witness people's progress.
That is interesting because they obviously, as the side effects of the illness starts to, not maybe temper, or whatever it may be, die down, that they don't stay needing to smoke as much cannabis. It's more of they do it as like taking a Xanax for a panic attack, so to speak. Like I didn't realize that you would, because oftentimes the argument is, oh, well, I enjoy this euphoric feeling, I may parlay that into it. But that's great to know that, I like to see that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think? And this may be outside the realm of obviously your research and your expertise, but we see that cannabis is starting to be used at least as we start to see better laws on like proactive approaches to things like dementia, Alzheimer's, and other, cognitive, I guess, battles. Do you have any insight as to like where we can see it? Because outside of just your trials or your patients, like we've seen that cannabis is a miracle plant and is actually making great strides in medicine. What do you see on the forefront from just your studies and research?
So cannabis is showing to be, it's very neuroprotective, right? It helps to protect our brains. And there was actually recent research that I was reading where if people are using cannabis correctly in their late 40s, early 50s, it can actually help to protect from neurodegeneration later in life. There's also a lot of research on TBI, traumatic brain injury, and cannabis. And we're actually going to be running a clinical study, hopefully next year, for cannabis and recovery of traumatic brain injury. Something else that's very interesting is research on using it as a protection for people who are more likely to get TBI. For example, people who are in the sports industry, right? Because of the neuroprotective qualities, there's some research that's showing that if people have low doses of cannabis in their system prior to going into, say, a sports game, right? Or playing a sport, there's a lesser likelihood that if they do get a brain injury, that it would lead to TBI because of its neuroprotective qualities. So these are things that Dimensions is really interested in exploring, and part of our research will be in traumatic brain injury and cannabis and psilocybin as well.
That's fantastic because we do, obviously football being the numero uno sport down here from you, and hockey is in the same camp, but we have a lot of athletes are coming out and saying that not only does it help for like muscle atrophy and like pains and ailments, but it's also that proactive approach. And I hate to say it's like when a drunk driver doesn't get hurt as bad because they have a little bit of that loosey goosey, the cannabis gives you that little bit of protection that doesn't ding that frontal lobe. It validates a lot of what these athletes have been saying. So we'll be looking forward to that research. Before we let you go, I've been goofing off with you for about 20 minutes. We've been talking about dimensions, but you kind of piqued some of my interest in your travels to South America. And so I wanted to ask you, Pat McAfee had Aaron Rodgers on, and, they spoke about how it was an eye-opening experience, also about how he started to look at his teammates and his position on a football team, so whatever, and that could be applied to any job. What were your experiences about it? Would for those that are kind of curious about it, scratching that itch, insight into the travels, how fun was it? Did you shit yourself? Things like that, the basic questions.
I totally get it. So what I would say is if you're interested in doing psychedelics, right? It's a good thing to start with like a cannabis ceremony first, right? Intentional cannabis can actually elicit the same states of oceanic boundlessness, which is a state in that we experience in a psychedelic experience where we're connected to something greater than ourselves, the universe, right? A sense of awe. I would actually recommend starting there first. Cannabis is a great starter medicine in a ceremonial setting. You build skill in how to work with a medicine, right? I
think our audience is probably in that we're not like seasoned veterans, but I don't think it's the first rodeo, because that's what it, like that other stuff. It's like, well, that's foreign to us, whereas cannabis is becoming more natural, and it's all, like kids are not smoking as much weed anymore because it's just readily available, and alcohol is getting worse. But I see DMT pens coming from raves and sitting poolside, and you're like, the world's changing.
Yeah. But that being said, these medicines are beautiful. I had a wonderful experience in Peru. I went to a retreat. A favorite place that I went to was a retreat center in Pisac, which is in Sacred Valley, called Sacred Valley Tribe. I had the first couple of experiences were very intense for me. I really had to learn how to let go into the experience. My first experience, I was like white knuckling it, right? Because there is this letting go. And when you finally do let go, you just allow the medicine to work with you. And I did throw up. You're saying, did I shit my pants? No, I didn't. But there is a lot of purging that can happen in ayahuasca experiences. But it really helped me to reprocess a lot of past experiences and past trauma. When I came out the other side, I was so grateful for the experience. And then I went for this amazing walk through a temple the next day in the mountains. It's called the Intihuatana Temple. And I was standing out, looking over the Sacred Valley, all these mountains. It was incredible.
And I get a little bit of bubble guts, even from just the casual, albeit recreational aspects of some other hallucinogens and that. So I have no doubt that I would be one of those people that everyone's like, did you? I'm like, yes. So I'm always curious, but did the temple feel kind of like, just like a breath of fresh air? Like you kind of want to cry a little bit. You're like, oh, it just feels like a little bit different. I'm looking through a different lens through life.
Yeah, it's like pressing the reset button, right? And for me, it changed my perspective on a lot of things, and I developed so much gratitude just for being alive, just for being on this planet at this time, right? Being able to live and laugh and love and be here. It was a beautiful experience. Yeah, I actually did 3 ayahuasca ceremonies that first week that I went, and each one got progressively more beautiful and expansive. And it's really like a coming home to yourself. That's the best way I like to describe it, is this coming back to your essence, that playfulness that's inside all of us that gets sort of covered with all the trauma and all of the stories. it takes us back to ourselves, back to our hearts.
Dude, it's infectious. Like, we are quite literally 3,000 miles away from one another, but how you speak so like passionately and like with a big smile and your face glows, it makes me want to book that flight tomorrow. I mean, I'm not kidding. And it's something we've mulled over, like friends and other folks. We've like, it's something I want to experience in due time, and not something I want to rush down there like some like frat kid trying to party. I want to make sure I do it the proper way. So being
Yeah.
able to kind of pick your brain was nice.
Yeah, and it's our hope too that as these medicines legalize, that we'll be able to do them here in Canada, right? With proper oversight and safety and psychotherapy and proper preparation and integration as well, which is really important for these experiences. I think if we're engaging in these practices, working with a therapist is really important, or some form of wellness practitioners as well. Breath work is really helpful with preparation and integration. Qigong, yoga, somatic therapies. Those are all of the different types of therapies that we offer here at Algonquin Highlands with our program on top of cannabis-assisted therapy. And as we start working with other medicines, we have a complete preparation and integration program for people as well.
Okay, so some quick basic questions. You mentioned you have to go through the website to put in an inquiry about doing a retreat. What is the website for folks that want to learn more? I know I Googled, or I got it through, shout out to Fallon for helping us out. She sent it to me, but what's our website if folks want to learn more about, dimensions as well as the process?
Yeah, so the website is www.dimensionsretreats.com. And all of the information about our retreats and what's offered is directly on our website. There's also the 1-800 number. If anyone has any questions, it's on the top right-hand corner of the screen. They can click that, and someone at our Dimensions Algonquin Highlands location pick up the phone and answer any questions. And then there's the Book Now button. If you press the Book Now button, you can learn about all the different types of retreats that we have. And then you can click Book Now, and that's where it begins the actual process, the onboarding process.
Okay, follow-up question. I have a couple of them. We would be remiss if we didn't ask them. We do them for all of our guests. And those questions are sponsored by Standing Akimbo Dispensary. If you want, to find that next level, might I recommend the Dialed In gummies? They have fantastic rosin flavors. It's our local medicinal dispensary that we love dearly. All right, first question. It's cold as shit up there. You're kind of in a little bit of a municipality, so it looks a little rural from the Google Maps. What's on the menu tonight?
On the menu tonight, I'm actually going to be having lake trout that is local. And I'm going to make some roasted parsnips and a sweet potato with a side salad.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I wasn't sure what y'all may be fucking with in the winter up there. It's like I killed a yak and I'm going to eat on that all winter. So I'm glad to hear it.
So we have had venison many times up here. One of our chefs in the kitchen has brought in some venison. You can get moose meat up here as well, if you know local hunters. And there's lots of lakes, so we get plenty of fresh fish as well from the local.
Y'all don't miss a beat. I love to hear it. And I mean, venison, obviously, I'm a redneck from the South and live in Colorado, and we have redneck and deer out here. So venison's a hot commodity. I love it dearly. It's delicious.
And it's good. The way that she made the venison was with it was like a maple syrup barbecue sauce with blueberries. So very Canadian.
I love, that is very Canadian. Okay, so one question we always like to ask all of our guests, it's a great way to kind of get to know their personality, and I feel like this is gonna be fun with you. It's called the Last Supper. You get to have 3 people join you for your last night on earth. They can be dead or alive, but they cannot be friends or family. Who are the 3 people that you're picking? And obviously, what are we doing?
Okay, so 3 people, dead or alive. And what are we eating?
Yeah. Or what are we doing? You don't have to necessarily be eating. Y'all could all be going. It could be like a concert or a parade. It could be a night on a boat.
Okay, so I'm gonna choose. Let's see. Oh man, this is hard.
I know, right?
It really gets you thinking, because I'm like, oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna say Khalil Gibran, who was a poet and philosopher.
That's the first time anyone's ever said that, if that surprises you.
Really?
Of fucking course. I don't even know if you wrote that down, if I could pronounce that, or if you said it again, if I could spell it.
Yeah. I would actually want, I think, Einstein. Let's get him at the table. And let's choose Oprah. Why not?
Okay, there you go. She's a Mississippi girl. I love it.
Interesting conversationalist. And I envision us. I actually would love to do a plant medicine ceremony with them.
Yes.
And have a nice dinner somewhere.
That's a vibe. You've got an eclectic three. That's a great one.
Yeah, it seems like an eclectic three, and it would be very interesting conversation.
I mean, you have you're from Canada. You lived in Toronto for a hot minute. You've dipped your toe in the Mexican food or Mexican scene as well. What's your favorite city, and what's a city you wish you could like travel to and enjoy a plant medicine one day? Maybe legal, or maybe it is like a Thailand. Where's a place you wish you could go do one of your ceremonies?
So right now,
dream list.
Yeah, I would love to go to Bali.
Okay.
Bali is one place that I'd really love to visit. I've never been. Current favorite city for me would have to be Cusco, Peru.
Understandable. It sounds like holier than thou experience, but I mean, I've never heard anything negative about South America. I've only heard epic experiences.
Cusco is such an incredible city. It's on the top of the mountain. So when you arrive, it's like you're in heaven, basically. And it's just spectacular. I love the view.
What's the food vibe up there? They were doing with a lot of like home gardens, or is just animals that accidentally stumble across this town on the mountain?
A lot of stuff comes from Sacred Valley and from the jungle, so you get a lot of fruit. But they eat a lot of alpaca, and one of their national dishes is actually guinea pig.
Okay. I don't look.
Yeah,
other cultures live there. Yeah. I'll try anything twice.
Yeah, I tried everything when I was there.
Yeah, you've got to. You immerse yourself. Like, I had some tacos last week. I don't even know what the fuck they were, but they were delicious and they were kind of gelatinous. And everybody was looking at me like, no way he's about to fucking eat that. And I still did it.
And at the end of the day, everything just tastes like chicken anyway.
It really does. It just takes like it's salt, pepper, maybe a little hot sauce.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, dude, I Donald, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. Do y'all have a social page that we can let folks know if they want to follow or get an inside look on, the facilities or, the experience? Anything we should do, or quick reminder on the website?
We do have Instagram as well. And all of our social media links are right on our website. But if you want to follow us on social media, we're Dimensions Retreats on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you. That's the one we play with the most. It's visually attractive. And seeing as we like weed and food, those things are both very pretty. So we want to try to showcase the best we can. And
if you go, you can see pictures of all of our beautiful cabins. They're very Scandinavian style, light filled, skylights, big windows. There's lots of photos of our beautiful retreat center on our Instagram page.
Hell yes. I love it. Well, you'll see it on our page, on our social media. We'll have a link in our bio. So if you want to learn more about these retreats for our Canadian friends up there, it may be quicker that y'all beat me up there just because it's a little chilly for me. But I'm going to look deeper into it about making a little road trip north.
It's beautiful in the summer. It gets really hot here. Yeah, 40 degrees Celsius up to in the summer. So
Nobody knows what that is, Donald. This is that's like what, 84 degrees.
something Fahrenheit.
Yeah. I was like, wait, 2.2 times something. That may be liters. I don't know, but that's our fault. We screwed that up. We should have been learning the proper metric system.
I know so it can get a little confusing, right? When you're
I'm so mad at myself. I'm just mad at myself. I'm like, son of a bitch. I wasn't a good science kid, and I didn't take a second language that wasn't Latin. So I'm not.
So 30 degrees Celsius is 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh shit! So you're talking like 100 plus up there.
Well, it can in Toronto, it can certainly get that hot sometimes. Here in Algonquin Highlands, we get 35 degrees sometimes on a hot day. Yeah.
That sounds like perfect vacation weather. So you'll be seeing us soon enough, but I do appreciate you taking the time to chat with me this evening, and I hope you have a wonderful supper.
Thank you so much. You as well. Thanks so much for meeting with me this evening.
For sure. And for our listeners at home, I want to remind everyone, stay high, stay happy. We'll talk to y'all next week. Happy holidays. Cheers.